of Cary's Government Access Channel.
Hello and welcome to the December meeting of the Operations Committee. We have 7 items on our agenda under consent. Would either of you like any of these items pulled for discussion?
Not me.
No,
Excellent. Okay. Oh, and I should say we have the distinguished Mayor Harold Weinbrecht filling in today for Lori Bush. So thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Okay. Our first item for discussion is the downtown Cary Roundabouts. Mr. Tim Bailey.
Good afternoon, Council. We received bids for our roundabout downtown. We have one on East Chatham at the end where it splits off at Durham Road, and one on the west end at where Chatham Street splits off in Old Apex. We received 9 bids. We received competitive bids below the engineer's estimate, and staff is recommending that we award the bid to Zolad's Construction for $1,299,585.67. A couple of other just points in the staff recommendation. We do have to get concurrence with DOT because of our grant, and there's some other standard language about award until such time as we sign contracts that we would recommend as staff.
Okay, wonderful. Do you have any questions about this?
Well, I just want to make sure I hear it out loud. We're saving how much under budget? $750,000 maybe?
Well, not quite
Not
that good.
quite. Just want to make sure the media hears that. They're pounding us on other budget issues. That we're $750,000 almost under.
Under our budget, we are about $700,000, but there's a couple of items that about 20-some thousand that we expend just for advertisements and basic things out of the project. It was designed in-house, and it is below engineer's estimate, which was $1,565,000.
Very good.
Fantastic. Good. Well, that's great news. So we'll move that on to the full council under the consent agenda. The second item is the community investment bond referendum results and appropriations to projects. Ms. Mills.
Good evening, Council. Tonight I have 2 reports regarding bonds, and first I'll discuss some technical issues around the Cary Community Investment Bond referendum that will serve our general fund, and then the next report I'll talk about details about our upcoming bond sale that will serve our utility fund capital needs. First, in regards to the November 6th referendum, Council is required to adopt a resolution that declares the results of the referendum. The brief resolution is attached to your staff report with 3 statements referring to the 3 questions on the ballot. The resolution states that you have received the results of the referendum from both Wake County and Chatham County and directs the town clerk to publish notice of the results. Also, in regards to that referendum, staff recommends that Council appropriate the $80 million bond authorization to the 17 fire, street, and parks projects identified throughout this process. With this action, staff can move forward on these projects with the appropriated funding in place. As you know, and as we sometimes do, Council has given staff authority to reallocate resources among projects to minimize cash restrictions, maximize interest income, and manage IRS tax exemption regulations. These reallocations do not increase or change total funding authorizations, but with this appropriation, staff can move forward on these projects. As you are well aware, with the referendum, our education program was clear that these projects would be financed with the intention of raising taxes 2 cents next year and 2 cents in 2015. And for a home with a tax value of $250,000, the total annual tax impact of these increases would be $100. So with this, staff recommends that you adopt the resolution declaring the results of the bond referendum, the 3 statements of results, and direct staff to publish the results and appropriate $80 million in general obligation bonds to the capital projects outlined in the staff report and the education program.
Okay. Do you have any questions or comments?
I agree with staff recommendation.
Okay. Jack, the one question I have for you all is the staff recommendation is to appropriate the funds to the specific capital projects. The other choice is that we could appropriate the funds for the parks. We could do another appropriation for the roads, another for the fire station, but not do it to the specific capital projects. And that gives us that flexibility that I think we might need in the future, might want to have in the future. And I ran that by Mr. Shiver. He said that would be fine if we decided to go that way as well. Is that correct?
Well, I think it may put a few constraints on us proceeding with certain projects. I'll let Ms. Mills address that, but in order for us to move forward with preliminary planning, design work, and so forth, these projects generally need an allocation. You know, that does not have to be done this evening, but, you know, it can be delayed for a period of time, or I might ask Ms. Mills if she has any other comments about that, but it would have that effect.
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that the projects move forward at this time exactly, and we always have the authority to move those funds around as we see fit if any changes will come, and not necessarily every project would start now.
The appropriation occurs before the bonds are sold. Then once you have the money, then you have the money to allocate into the specific pots. What is the advantage of specifying at the appropriation level the particular capital projects versus just putting it into parks and then appropriating it as we begin each project?
Well, staff needs the authority by project to move forward. So if you are interested in staff moving forward on any one specific project, the appropriation needs to be there. You really don't have to think about the bond sale after that. That's really a cash management and timing consideration. So once that appropriation is there, staff has the authority to move forward. What we do in the finance department that you've also granted us authority for is to approve a reimbursement resolution. So if we spend cash that we have before the bond sale, staff can move forward, and then when the bond proceeds come in, we reimburse ourselves for that cash
and that
loan
enables you to go
so
ahead
that
and
projects
get started.
can move forward. Yes,
But
ma'am.
I would also add that if you do that and you appropriate the money as shown in the staff report, that those specific projects can be changed.
Absolutely.
Within,
You can always-
within their categories.
Absolutely.
So it does not tie you to.
Okay.
Refresh my memory on the information campaign. Did we have any level of specificity down to that detail in the information that we sent out?
Yes, sir, we did.
Well, that's the only other concern I have. I mean, it sounds like if we move ahead, if something comes up in those categories, we have the ability to change, but there's part of me that thinks that since these were identified, you know, to the voters, we ought to at least move forward now. You know, we may find a more compelling argument and go back to, you know, to our constituents, and as long as we're in that category. But, you know, I mean, I understand what you're trying to do for the flexibility, but, you know, my inclination is let's leave it as is, knowing that we have that ability to go back.
Okay.
That'd be my thoughts.
All right, that'd be fine. Okay, so we will move the community investment bond referendum results and the appropriations onto council as written in the staff report. Okay, and then the resolution you already talked about too, item number 3, right? So the revenue bond resolution.
I need
or
to
is that-
talk about some
That's
of those
totally
details.
separate. Okay, so go
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am, totally separate.
Go ahead.
And this is about a revenue bond sale. We're
Oh, okay.
actually getting the cash proceeds to match the appropriations that you've already made,
okay.
authorizing $105 million in bond proceeds. And on July 26th of this year, council authorized staff to move forward on this bond sale, and it will fund water and wastewater projects, with the primary project being the Western Wake facilities. Today, staff is seeking council approval of a bond order resolution that addresses the final details of the sale that is scheduled for January 9th. In this resolution, council also authorizes staff to refinance up to $35 million in existing revenue bonds. And in the current markets, a refinancing could generate as much as $3.8 million in budgeted debt service over the next 20 years, and that's worth $3.1 million in today's dollars. In summary, the bond order confirms the details of the sale and grants staff authority to sell the bonds in accordance with the draft documents that we've provided. Council has taken steps to prepare for the debt service on these bonds through rate increases in accordance with a financial plan that accommodates the capital requirements of the utility. And with that, staff recommends that council adopt the attached bond order authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $140 million combined enterprise system revenue and refunding bonds, and the execution and delivery of the necessary documents to accomplish the sale.
Okay. Any comments, questions?
Wouldn't even attempt.
Actually, I went to New York with Karen's team and the team from Davenport and team from Citigroup, and it's a huge team and a huge effort involved in selling these bonds. It's very impressive. And I trust them implicitly with all the information that they've given us. It's not a couple of weeks in the making. I know Karen and her staff have been working on this for a long, long time. I know at least since February. I remember some of those interactions.
That's right.
But this is mostly for our Western Wake Regional Wastewater Management Facilities, and that's well underway, and this will help finance that.
Super. Okay. Well, thank you very much for all your hard work, and we'll move that forward to the council. Okay.
Thank you.
On consent?
On consent. No, do you want to discuss it more at the council meeting?
No, I just want to make sure it goes on consent. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Mr. Overton, the amendments to encroachments ordinance and minor encroachments permit form.
Good evening, Council. Before you tonight is consideration of adoption of an ordinance amendment to the Town Code, Chapter 28, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Places, as well as a new minor encroachment permit form. This is something that we've heard from our customers and that they'd like to be easier. And in summary, it will make permitting small projects like irrigation projects less burdensome on customers. And so staff recommends approval of an associated ordinance revision and new minor encroachment permit form.
Great. I thought this was excellent. I thought it was good to kind of streamline this and make it easier for our customers. My one question is, do you think that we'll get any complaints from their neighbors on these minor encroachments going on? Or is this kind of what people are already doing? It's just as a more laborious process to get there?
Correct. I wouldn't expect any complaints because they're already doing it on a longer form that technically has a lot more requirements that to some degree are having to be overlooked because they can't do them.
Okay. Okay. Do y'all have any questions about this? No, I don't. Okay, so we will pass that on to the council on consent as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Overton. That's great. Okay, the last item is amendments to the Traffic Schedule 8, prohibited parking all times. Mr. Lieutenant Barker.
Good evening, Council. I apologize for the change in the agenda. Lieutenant Barker is scheduled to be here. However, he's out of state and unable to be here, so I'm the stand-in.
Excellent.
What we have before us tonight is an opportunity to change the traffic schedule to allow parking on a short piece of Keesler Drive. A little history on this. Earlier this year, in response to some complaints from citizens about sight distance issues on that road, the police department and the engineering department took a look at that area and determined that there were indeed many sight distance issues by allowing cars to park on both sides of Keesler Drive. As a result of that, we recommended that we restrict parking, make that a no parking area for the entire length of that road, which we did. A couple of months later, we heard from one of the tenants in that area that had created a real hardship on his business as far as having enough spacing for his customers to park. We worked with him, tried to identify some areas, that perhaps some off-site areas that his customers could park, but after a period of a couple of months, that just wasn't working. He again appealed to us to take a different look at it. So again, police department and the engineer went out and took a look and did agree that there is a short section of Keesler Drive on the south side of Keesler Drive from Kildare Farm Road to a point just prior to the entrance of 300 Keesler Drive that we do think you could open up for parking and it would not create undue sight distance issues for the motoring public. So that is the recommendation tonight, that we open that section up.
Okay, great. Mr. Smith, is this your district?
Yeah, when they restricted the parking, it was on both sides, and it does make it tight for several, like UPS trucks. But again, at that area, there's a line of sight, and to have parking on one side, after the police reviewed it, they're comfortable with that, and it would give some relief to them. The good news is those buildings are full and occupied. That's the good news. So it's a nice problem to have, and I think this will help a lot. I would look for the support on that.
Okay, super. Any comments?
Nothing to add. I sounds like they studied it thoroughly, so I
Okay.
trust their judgment.
Okay, super. Well, we appreciate you going back and revisiting an issue that was already once addressed. So thank you for going back and doing that.
Yes, ma'am.
And we will move that to the council meeting under the consent agenda for the council. And that concludes our meeting of the Operations Committee. Thank you very much.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.